time, it seemed like the war would never end.
A Revolutionary War soldier and a patriot, Stephen Betts fought in battles up and down the eastern seaboard before being wounded at Yorktown. By his own account, Betts fought in 13 different battles, a feat matched by few soldiers of any rank during the war.
If you'd lend me your ear for just a moment, I'll tell you the whole story. I listened intently to the events of the battles of Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill from my hometown in Norwalk, Connecticut, the spring of 1775. Young and dedicated, I did not hesitate to enlist and aid the fight for American independence.
On July 6th, 1775, I was but 19 when I received the rank of sergeant in Captain Joseph Height's 4th Company in Colonel Charles Webb's 7th Connecticut Regiment. I joined recruits from Fairfield, Litchfield, and New Haven counties, stationed at various points along Long Island Sound, until September, when General George Washington ordered us to the Boston camps. I had recently become an ensign, along with my regiment, was closely engaged at the Battle of White Plains on October 28th and the Battle of Trenton on December 25th, 1776. Some in the regiment continued in service after their term expired at the request of General Washington and engaged at Princeton on January 1st, 1777. I was one of the honored few to be raised to the rank of captain. I was not even old enough yet. Commission didn't take place until my 21st birthday that July. The winter of 1777 to 78 was cold and harsh, but it did not break my spirit. It was that year, at Valley Forge, that I signed my loyalty oath. In that spring of 1778, while serving in the 2nd Connecticut Regiment of the Continental Line, I fought at the Battle of Monmouth. But it is my exploits in my own hometown, the Battle of Norwalk, that sit most prominently in my mind.
Major General William Tryon, Loyalist governor of New York, had been conducting retribution raids at New Haven and Fairfield further up the coast. They then retreated to their vessels and sailed across the Sound to Huntington Bay, Long Island. On the evening of July 10th, 1779, Governor Tryon led 2,600 British and Hessian soldiers to Norwalk. Their ships moored beyond the Norwalk Islands, and a division was transported by flatboats and bateaux to calf pasture, where they camped for the night.
The townspeople were terrified of what might happen to them. Most fled north of the rocks to Belden Hill or other outlying areas during the night. Losses from the burning of Norwalk were staggering. 130 homes, 87 barns, 40 shops, 5 vessels, 2 churches, 4 mills and salt pans were burned that day by the British. Norwalk, a bustling mercantile center, suffered more destruction than any other Connecticut town during the Revolution. Now we had to win.
I went on to fight at the Siege of Yorktown, and I was one of the commanders of the Forlorn Hope under orders from Colonel Alexander Hamilton. Everyone knew it was a suicide mission, hand-to-hand combat with no place to hide. On October 14th, 1781, I was wounded during a bayonet exchange, as my men and I took Redoubt No. 10. 5 days later, with success in hand, Cornwallis troops surrendered, signaling the end of the Revolutionary War.
We fought like lions, and we found our freedom.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Justin Crisp, and I'm an associate rector at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in New Canaan, Connecticut, a community which played an important role in Stephen Betts' life. Captain Betts was about my age, actually, when he returned from war to Norwalk, and 3 years later married Ruth Church. Stephen and Ruth became stalwart members of St. Paul's on the Green in Norwalk, actually, before moving sometime before 1790, several miles north to Canaan Parish, perhaps to acquire farmland. They settled on a farm on Owen-Oak Ridge and had as many as 7 children, 3 of whom unfortunately died in childhood.
Stephen Betts was a slave owner, and the Betts household included an enslaved African man named Jesse. Jesse was a farmer. We believe that Jesse served at least 2 generations of the Betts family. The 1850 census, taken after the deaths of both Stephen and his wife Ruth, lists Jesse Betts by name, and by that time as a free man of color in the household of Esther Raymond, Stephen's daughter, and her husband Lewis.
In 1862, Jesse died at the age of 78 and was buried here, in what's now the St. Mark's Cemetery on West Road, 2 graves down from Stephen's. The DAR and St. Mark's are both in the process of learning more about Jesse. We're committed to sharing more of his story and finding new ways to honor and memorialize him, particularly as St. Mark's and the whole Episcopal Church in Connecticut continue to explore our historic complicity in our nation's original sin. We also know that Captain Betts served alongside soldiers of color during the American Revolution. One such soldier was a black man by the name of Bristol Budd. By 1820, Budd was unfortunately blind, destitute, and in dire need of assistance. Because of Captain Betts's upstanding reputation as an officer, Bristol Budd traveled hundreds of miles, decades after the war, to seek him out and to ask him for help in securing a pension. The recommendation that Betts wrote for Budd was successful in garnering him a pension of $8 a month, giving Budd a livelihood when he needed it most, and also honoring his service as a patriot. Stephen Betts was a devout and devoted Anglican his entire life, and once he had settled on Owen-Oak Ridge in New Canaan, he became a lay assistant at the Church of England Meeting House on West Road, which is where I'm actually standing now. This is where the meeting house was. After the Revolution, American Anglicans began to devise their own governance outside the jurisdiction of the Church of England, calling themselves the Protestant Episcopal Church. Betts actually helped to raise funds to build the first Episcopal church in New Canaan, known as St. Mark's, and he donated over 200 pounds of his own money towards the new church, built adjacent to God's Acre, where it still stands today actually as St. Michael's Lutheran Church. Captain Betts died on November 28, 1832, at 76 years old, just 2 years short of the building's completion. A bronze plaque still hangs at St. Mark's Church. It was originally dedicated to Captain Betts in the 1830s, and it stayed hanging in St. Mark's when the church relocated further up Owen-Oak Ridge in the 1960s. The plaque names Captain Betts as one of our parish founders and as the first senior warden of the Episcopal Society in Canaan Parish. Captain Betts, his wife Ruth, their children, and Jesse are all buried here at the site of the old Church of England Meeting House on West Road, the entirety of which was converted to a cemetery when the congregation moved to God's Acre in 1833. Captain Betts embodied many of the most profound promises and perils of his generation, as even his burial here alongside Jesse indicates. We recognize and lament his inability to ensure freedom's extension to all in his household, even as we honor the valor with which he pursued the freedom of our young nation. It was only after the war that Captain Stephen Betts came to Canaan Parish, renamed New Canaan after its incorporation as a town in 1801. But both Norwalk and New Canaan remember and honor the bravery, mettle, and determination of this son of the American Revolution.